Hello everybody, welcome once again to Clues by Sam. It's Saturday, have a good one, and we have a hard one today, which I'm excited for. Let's see what Christmassy things we have today, or if we don't have any, because it doesn't look like it. If you don't know what Clues by Sam is, it's a daily logic puzzle game where you have 20 people on a board. Each of them may be a criminal or an innocent, and you gotta figure out what each person is using the clues that they themselves give you. We are here every day doing this. If you need any help when you do it, because I encourage you to try it, there is a link in the description to take you to it, and I'm gonna be solving this right now and explaining my logic. You can let me know later how it went for you, or you can just watch the video and go along with me. Let's start now. I see that we have a snowman and some curlers, so there is Christmassy things. Sue tells us that Frank is one of two innocents in row 2. So Frank is an innocent. We have two innocents and two criminals in row 2, which is this one. Let's keep that clue there to remind us of it. Now Frank tells us that only one of the 4 innocents on the edges is in row 2. So there is an innocent in row 2 who's gonna be either Ethan or Helen. And that's the second innocent in row 2. So we know that Gabe is the second criminal. And we also know that there's 4 innocents on the edges total. So that's very few of them. We have Sue and the second one here. Now Gabe tells us that row 2 has more innocents than any other row. Wow. So row 2 has 2 innocents, which means that no other rows have 2, because row 2 has more than any others, and the only numbers smaller than 2 are 0 and 1 in this situation where we can't have negatives. So we know that row 4 doesn't have any more innocents because it has Sue already, and that's the most it could have. So not both, but all of Penny, Olga, and Nicole are criminals. And let's leave Gabe's clue there to remind us that no other rows have more than 1. Nicole tells us there is only 1 innocent above her. So if Ethan is that innocent, then no other ones are. But there's also the thing about only having 4 innocents on the edges total. So let's leave Nicole's clue there. And Penny tells us that column D is the only column with exactly 3 criminals. So how do you think about that? There's 5 people in total in column D. 3 of them are criminals, right? Which means that 2 of them are innocents. If Helen is an innocent, then Deborah, Martin, and Zane are all criminals. That happens. That's okay. I guess that's not the column we have to think about. If Helen is a criminal, then we have 1 other innocent around here. And that will be 1, 2, 3 innocents on the edges. But that doesn't help us. So I don't think this is the column we gotta be looking at. Let's think about column C. If column D is the only column with exactly 3 criminals, what does that mean? That column C has to either have more than 3 criminals or less than that. If it has less than that, then we have the 2 criminals then that column will have in total. And that will mean that Celia and Vance are both innocents. And now we have our 4 innocents on the edges, right? Celia, Vance, Sue, and someone who's either going to be Ethan or Helen. And that will make it so Helen has to be the second innocent. Otherwise, there would be no way that column D has... Oh, column D could still have 3 criminals. That wouldn't matter. So these 3 could be criminals. And... Oh. No. That wouldn't work. Yeah, that wouldn't work. Because, okay, let's go back and look at it again. If Celia and Vince are both innocents, we have our 4 innocents on the edges, right? They are Sue, Celia, Vance, and either Helen or Frank. Either Helen or Ethan. If Ethan is that innocent, then there's still one more person in column D who has to be an innocent. Does it work if Ethan is a criminal and Helen is an innocent? It does. Because now there's no extra people who need to be innocents. Now, if any of these are innocents, if any of these are criminals, like Celia, Larry has to be a criminal as well. Or both of them. So is this what I have to be looking at? I don't think so. I think I'm jumping the gun here. Let's clear everything, go back to Ethan and Helen, and look at column A now. In column A, Nicole tells us there is only one innocent above her, which means that there's 2 criminals here. And along with her, that's 3 criminals. So there has to be one more criminal in column A because it couldn't have only 3 criminals because column D is the only one with 3. So we know that Tyler is a criminal as well. That's what we had to be looking at. Nice. Now Tyler tells us that an odd number of innocents above Zane, neighbor Gabe. Innocents. What does that mean? It means there's one innocent here, and we know that column D has only 2 innocents. The second one is Sue, and one of them is neighbor Gabe, so that's our 2 innocents, which means that Zane is for sure a criminal as well. And I guess we don't need Tyler's clue anymore. Now Zane tells us that there are as many innocent clerks as there are innocent farmers. There's 3 clerks here, and there's 3 farmers total. So there's 1 innocent farmer already, which means there has to be 1 innocent clerk. And I also think that means that's our 4th innocent person on the edges. Because we're gonna have one of them here. So that's 1. Sue is gonna be the second one. No, we don't know. It could be Helen and let's say Ben. Then we would have 3. Innocents on the edges. And then we would have 2 criminal farmers and 2 criminal clerks and 1 innocent of each. So that works. How would it work if Deborah were an innocent? Helen would have to be a criminal, Martin as well, and Ethan would have to be an innocent. Does it make a difference on how many? I think Uma is the key here, because if Uma is an innocent, it breaks. If Uma is an innocent, we would have to have a second innocent clerk, and that would break the total of innocents on the edges. It doesn't matter how many, or it doesn't matter who is an innocent clerk, because we're gonna have to have 1 for sure, right? Since we have 1 innocent farmer, we're gonna have to have 1 innocent clerk for sure. It doesn't matter who it is. And that clerk's gonna be on the edge. So we have a 3rd person here on the edge. who is an innocent. If Uma is a second innocent on the farmers, or either Joy, even if Joy is a second innocent. Now, Joy could be a second innocent and we could have a second innocent clerk because that would total 4 innocents on the edges. We will have 1 here, 2, 3, 4. But if Uma is an innocent, then we would have 5 innocents on the edges. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because the second clerk would have to be an innocent. So Uma couldn't be an innocent ever. We don't know about Joy though. And now Uma tells us that an odd number of innocents on the edges neighbor Helen. Could it be Celia? It could. If Helen is an innocent, she could have Celia as an innocent neighbor. And then Ethan as a criminal. That works for us. And then these two would have to be criminals. Now, if Helen weren't an innocent, let's say that she is a criminal, there would have to be an innocent here, who's either going to be Deborah or Martin. If you were Deborah, that means that Joy is a criminal. Right? Celia will have to be a criminal. But we don't know about Ben. 1, 2, 3. Joy could be an innocent if Ben is an innocent. And we gotta remind ourselves that column D is the only one with 3 innocents. So that's another clue to keep in mind. And Nicole's clue. Oh my god, that's a lot of things. Go again. Go again. Did we have something about row 2 having more innocents than any other row? So we know that there isn't a possibility that 2 clerks are innocents. Because row 2 has 2 innocents, so we can't have 2 innocent clerks. Which means that Joy is for sure a criminal. And there's only 1 innocent clerk. And since there has to be 1 innocent clerk because of rank, Anna has to be a criminal. Nice. We're doing good. We're doing good. And now there has to be an innocent here who's either going to be Ethan or Ivan. What else do we know? Oh, column B couldn't have 3 criminals only because column D is the only one that has 3. So Ben has to be a criminal. Now, what do we know about the totals again? We have 1 innocent here. And 1 innocent who neighbors Helen, so that's 2. 3 with Sue. Can we try tagging Helen as an innocent? If she's an innocent, Ethan is a criminal. And then Ivan is an innocent. Now we have 3 innocents on the edges, but Helen still has to have 1 neighboring her. It would have to be Celia. So that's our 4 innocents. And in that case, Vance is a criminal because we couldn't have any more criminal. We couldn't have any more innocents on the edges. 1, 2, 3, 4. Can I try making Helen a criminal? If she is a criminal, Ethan is an innocent, and Ivan is a criminal. Helen still has to have one innocent neighboring her, but it would have to be either Deborah or Martin. So let's say that's Deborah. Now, how many innocents do we have? 1, 2, 3. Vance would have to be an innocent. What about Larry in this situation then? Since someone here has to be an innocent on the edge, either Celia or Vance, I think Larry always has to be an innocent. Otherwise, column C would have 3 criminals. Oh, column C has 3 criminals, so Larry has to be a criminal. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so Larry has to be a criminal in any scenario that we figure, because there will be a criminal here. There's no way for both of these to be criminals, because we need one more innocent on the edge either way. So Larry is always a criminal. So now we have these two, and these two are one or the other. I want to use the upper tag in this scenario. What else do we know now? Since Larry didn't give us a new clue. Oh, one of these two is gonna be an innocent. Celia and Deborah. That's okay. Can we think about Ivan Martin? Is Martin ever an innocent? I don't think so. If Martin is an innocent, Helen has to be a criminal. Deborah has to be a criminal, and that breaks Deborah and Celia, because Helen has her single innocent neighbor. So Celia would have to be a criminal as well, and now there's no innocent clerks, which we need. So Martin couldn't be an innocent. Okay, that works for me. Then Martin gives a new clue. There's an odd number of criminals neighboring Frank. Frank so far has 2, 4, 5 criminals. He's gonna have one more here for sure, so that's 6. Which means that Celia has to be a criminal to make 7 an odd number. And why is that? Because there's one innocent above Nicole, so Celia has to be a criminal, and Deborah has to be an innocent, and Helen has to be a criminal, and Ethan has to be an innocent, and Ivan has to be a criminal. And now how many innocents do we have on the edges? 1, 2, 3, so that means that Vince has to be an innocent as well. And we are done. How long did that take? 19 minutes. Yeah, that was a really hard one. But mainly there was some confusion there with the column thing. Like you had to put a lot of things together for that to work. So a challenging one, which I appreciate. Thank you, Sam. And yeah, that will be it for today. I hope that helped you, and I hope you had fun. I'll be back here again tomorrow with more clues by Sam. Let's hope for an evil one tomorrow. Bye bye.